The ballroom shimmered with chandeliers, champagne glasses clinking like tiny shards of false promises. Cameras flashed as the city's elite applauded the arrival of Richard Miller, the real estate mogul who could buy and sell dreams with a single phone call. But tonight, he wasn't holding his wife's hand. He was holding Vanessa's. Her red dress flowed like temptation itself, and the crowd buzzed with whispers. "Isn't he married? That's not Anna." Laughter and curiosity filled the room, and when the host announced Richard Miller and his lovely partner, a roar of approval drowned out the last gasp of his reputation. Miles away, in the quiet warmth of their penthouse nursery, Anna Miller sat cross-legged on the floor, assembling a white crib she had ordered online. She was 7 months pregnant, glowing, hopeful, and alone. The television hummed softly behind her, broadcasting the live charity gala. When she turned her head, she froze. Richard's arm was wrapped tightly around Vanessa's waist. His smile, once hers alone, now belonged to another woman. The headline below read, "Power Couples Steal the Spotlight." Her hands trembled. A screwdriver clattered to the floor. She reached for her phone and dialed his number, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. He answered on the third ring, voice cold and flat. "Richard," she whispered. "What is this? Why is she—" He cut her off. "Anna, stop embarrassing yourself. Vanessa is the future. You were the past." The line went dead. Anna stared at the phone screen until it blurred. Then she laughed, a small, broken sound that turned into sobbing. Her body ached, her belly tightened. She stood up too fast, steadying herself on the crib, whispering, "It's okay, baby. It's okay. We'll be okay." Outside, thunder rolled over Manhattan. She packed one suitcase, only baby clothes, a photo of her parents, and the ultrasound picture showing 5 tiny heartbeats. She slipped off her wedding ring and placed it on the vanity beside his cologne. The rain came down hard when she stepped into the street. She didn't even take an umbrella. Taxi lights smeared the wet pavement into streaks of gold and sorrow. At the traffic light, she looked back once. The penthouse lights were still on. Maybe he'd come after her. Maybe he'd remember the woman who loved him before he was rich. But no door opened. No one ran into the rain. "Airport, please," she told the driver, voice barely a whisper. Halfway there, her phone buzzed again, a message from an unknown number. "Don't come back. You'll ruin everything." Attached was a photo of her, taken just minutes before, stepping into the cab. Anna's breath caught. Someone was watching. Her pulse raced. She clutched her belly, realizing the world she thought she knew was already gone. She pressed her hand to the glass, whispering, "Hold on, my loves. Mommy's got you." The taxi disappeared into the storm, and by morning, Anna Miller no longer existed in New York. Rain beat against the taxi window like 1,000 tiny fists. Anna's reflection stared back at her, pale, terrified, trembling. She pressed a hand to her stomach as the baby kicked, sharp and sudden like a warning. The driver glanced in the mirror. "Ma'am, you okay?" She forced a smile. "Just drive." The city lights faded behind them, swallowed by the storm. Every raindrop echoed the sound of her world collapsing. In her mind, Richard's words kept replaying, cold and final. "You were the past." Her throat tightened. "Then I'll disappear," she whispered to no one. A sharp pain seized her abdomen. She gasped, clutching her belly. The driver swerved. "Ma'am!" "Hospital," she croaked. "Now." Minutes later, nurses rushed her through sliding glass doors. The fluorescent light stabbed her eyes. A voice shouted, "She's 7 months, contractions starting. We need an ultrasound." Dr. Michael Evans appeared, calm but urgent. "Anna Miller?" Her lips trembled. "No, please. Not that name, just Anna." He nodded, understanding more than she said. Within minutes, monitors beeped, screens flickered, and Michael frowned at the readings. "You're not having one baby," he said softly. "You're having 5. Anna blinked. "5? What?" "Quintuplets," he confirmed. "Your body's under enormous strain. Stress could trigger preterm labor. You need complete rest and protection." "Do you have someone we can call?" She shook her head. "No one." Michael sighed. "Then we'll take care of you here, but you'll need to stay somewhere quiet, hidden." Hidden. The word felt like both salvation and prison. Hours later, the pain eased after medication. Anna sat in the dim hospital room, staring at her IV drip. Her phone lay face down on the bedside table, buzzing with unread messages. News alerts, gossip headlines, betrayal immortalized. Her heart screamed for her mother, for her sister Chloe, for anyone. but pride sealed her lips. She had loved Richard too deeply to let the world see her humiliated. When Michael returned, he carried a folder. "There's a safe program for women at risk, Seabrook Community Clinic. It's out of the city, near the coast. I can transfer you there quietly tonight." "Why are you helping me?" she asked, tears in her voice. He hesitated. "Because I've seen what heartbreak does to expectant mothers. You deserve a chance to heal, and those babies deserve peace." Anna looked out the window. The storm was clearing, but the city still bled neon against the wet streets. "Seabrook," she whispered. "Yes, take me there." Michael smiled gently. "Good. Get some rest. We'll leave before sunrise." When he left, Anna picked up her phone one last time. She opened the photo of the ultrasound, 5 tiny shadows of life, and whispered, "You're all I have now." Then she deleted every contact, every picture, every trace of her old life. She set the phone down and closed her eyes. At dawn, a medical van slipped out of the city, carrying a woman who no longer existed, and 5 lives that would change the world. The van hummed along the coastal highway as dawn painted the world in pale gold. Anna leaned her head against the window, eyes swollen from crying. The storm had passed, but her heart still thundered with fear. Every bump in the road reminded her of the life growing, 5 tiny heartbeats inside her. Dr. Michael Evans sat across from her, flipping through a clipboard. "We'll reach Seabrook in an hour. It's quiet there. No paparazzi, no noise, no past." Anna nodded faintly. "That's all I want. No past." By noon they arrived in Seabrook. A sleepy seaside town smelling of salt and pine. Wooden cottages lined the hill above a calm bay. Fishermen waved as the van rolled by. The town seemed frozen in time, untouched by greed or glamour. Michael parked outside a weathered guest house with a faded sign, "Gray's Boarding House." A silver-haired woman stood at the door, wiping her hands on a flour-dusted apron. "You must be the special case," she said with a warm smile. "I'm Margaret Gray, but everyone just calls me Grandma Gray." Anna hesitated, then took her hand. "Thank you for helping me." "Helping folks is all I've got left to do," Mrs. Gray replied. "You'll be safe here, child. No one in Seabrook asks questions they don't need the answers to." The room smelled like lavender and ocean breeze, simple, clean, with lace curtains and a rocking chair by the window. Anna touched the wooden frame of the bed, the soft quilt, so different from the marble coldness of her penthouse. After unpacking, she sat by the window, staring at the sea. The quiet was deafening. For the first time in weeks, she felt the faintest flicker of peace, until she opened the newspaper that Mrs. Gray had left by the door. Front page headline, "Richard Miller engaged to his assistant, Vanessa Reed." Her breath caught. The ink blurred as tears fell onto the paper. Just 3 days ago, she was his wife. Now the world called her ex. She tore the paper into shreds and whispered, "He replaced me before I even left." That night, a storm brewed again. Smaller, quieter, but enough to shake the window panes. Anna curled on the bed, clutching her belly as the babies kicked restlessly. She whispered their names softly for the first time. Ivy, Noah, Lily, Ethan, Grace. Saying them out loud felt like building a small wall of love against the cruelty outside. Downstairs, Mrs. Gray prayed over her dinner. "Lord bless that girl upstairs. Heal what men have broken." In the clinic the next morning, Michael reviewed her ultrasound and smiled gently. "They're strong. You're stronger. Keep fighting, Anna." She smiled weakly. "It's Anne now. Anne Green." He nodded. "Anne Green it is." Outside the clinic, the ocean glittered under sunlight. For the first time, Anna allowed herself to breathe, truly breathe, as Anne Green, a woman reborn. But in New York, a photographer had just sold the last photo ever taken of Anna Miller, and one powerful man would soon begin to realize what he had truly lost. Weeks passed in Seabrook, and the scent of salt air became the rhythm of Anna's new life. She spent her mornings watching waves crash against the rocks, whispering lullabies to her unborn children. The locals were kind. They greeted her with nods and quiet smiles, respecting her privacy. Yet at night, when the wind howled through the old boarding house, fear crept in again. Dr. Michael Evans visited twice a week, checking her vitals and the baby's progress. "You're stable for now," he said one afternoon, "but 5 lives mean 5 times the risk. We'll need to monitor you more closely as you get closer to term." Anna looked away, ashamed. "I can't afford more care, Michael. I don't even have insurance under this name." He hesitated, lowering his voice. "I'll handle it. I can mark your file as part of a charity program. No one needs to know." Tears welled in her eyes. "You'd risk that for me?" He smiled. "You're not just a patient anymore, Anna. You're a fighter." But even kindness couldn't quiet the growing panic in her chest. That night, a letter slipped under her door. An overdue notice from her hospital stay in New York. Somehow, they had tracked her old name. Amount due, 18,470s. The bold red ink screamed louder than thunder. Mrs. Gray found her sitting on the floor, clutching the paper. "What's this, child?" "Debt," Anna whispered. "From a life I don't have anymore." The older woman took the paper, tore it neatly in half, and said, "Then we won't live in it anymore either. God provides. You focus on those babies." But as Mrs. Gray walked away, Anna knew God wasn't the one who had betrayed her. It was Richard, the man who had promised forever and given her nothing but bills and shame. The next morning, she went to the small chapel by the pier. Father Mateo, the town priest, was sweeping sand from the floor. "Forgive me, Father," Anna said softly, "for wanting to hate." He looked up, kind eyes full of wisdom. "Hate burns the vessel that holds it, my dear. But pain? Pain can be turned into purpose." His words stayed with her all day. That evening, she sketched designs on old paper. Tiny rocking chairs, carved cribs, simple furniture filled with warmth and care. It was something she hadn't done since before the betrayal. When Michael stopped by later, he noticed the sketches. "You're talented," he said. "Why not make them?" She looked up, surprised. "Here? With what?" He smiled. "I know a man who runs a workshop for the church. You could start small." Hope flickered. For the first time, Anna felt the faint pulse of her old self returning. She touched her belly and whispered, "If I can build for them, I can rebuild myself." Outside, lightning flashed across the ocean, and far away in New York, Richard Miller signed a new contract that would soon destroy everything he owned. Seabrook was quiet that morning, the sky painted gray like a warning. The air carried the heavy scent of seaweed and coming rain. Inside Mrs. Gray's house, Anna sat by the window, her hands on her swollen belly. The babies had been restless all night, twisting and kicking as if they too sensed something coming. Michael stopped by for his daily check. "Blood pressure's up," he said, frowning at his chart. "You need rest, Anne. Strict bed rest. Promise me." She nodded weakly. "They're just active." But when he left, the pain began. It started as a dull ache in her back, then tightened like a rope pulling from the inside. Within minutes, sweat beaded her forehead. She tried to stand, but the room spun. The first contraction hit hard, sharp enough to make her cry out. Mrs. Gray rushed in. "Lord above! Michael said you weren't due for weeks." Anna's voice shook. "They're coming. I can feel it." The storm outside broke loose, rain hammering the roof. Michael's phone rang just as thunder cracked. "It's her!" Mrs. Gray shouted. "The babies are coming now." He sped through flooded streets, windshield wipers slapping wildly. At the same time, the power flickered across town. By the time he arrived, the boarding house lights had gone out completely. "Generators out," Mrs. Gray yelled over the roar of the wind. "We'll never make it to the hospital in time." Michael's jaw tightened. "Then we bring the hospital here." He and Mrs. Gray moved fast, boiling water, laying towels, setting up an emergency light. Anna's cries echoed through the house, raw and desperate. Between contractions, she whispered the names she'd chosen, over and over, like prayers. Ivy, Noah, Lily, Ethan, Grace. Hours passed in a blur of pain and thunder. The storm raged, shaking the walls, but inside that small room, something stronger was happening, a woman fighting for life, for 5 tiny souls. Finally, one small cry pierced the air, then another and another. Michael's hands trembled as he lifted each fragile baby, wrapping them carefully in soft towels. The 5th came last, silent at first. Anna's heart stopped, until a faint, trembling cry broke through the noise. Mrs. Gray fell to her knees, sobbing. 5 miracles, 5 angels. Michael exhaled, drenched in sweat. "They'll need NICU care immediately." By morning, when the roads cleared, they rushed to the Seabrook clinic. The babies were placed in incubators, their tiny chests rising and falling under blue light. Anna lay weak but awake, staring through the glass at her children. "They're fighters," Michael whispered. "So am I," she said softly. Outside, the storm clouds drifted away, leaving a soft pink sunrise over the water. But while Anna clung to her 5 miracles, back in New York, Richard and Vanessa toasted champagne, unaware that the deal they'd just signed would soon destroy the empire built on her pain. The NICU was a world of whispers, soft alarms, beeping monitors, and tiny breaths fighting for life inside glass cocoons. Anna sat by the incubators every night, her body weak but her spirit anchored. Each of her 5 babies, Ivy, Noah, Lily, Ethan, and Grace, wore name tags the size of her thumb. Their skin was translucent, their fingers no bigger than matchsticks. Yet each time they moved, hope flickered like a candle refusing to die. Michael often found her humming lullabies at 3 a.m., refusing to sleep. "You need rest," he would say, his voice gentle but firm. "I will," she'd whisper, eyes never leaving her children. "After they're safe." Days blended into nights. Machines hummed and numbers blinked across monitors. The nurses adored her quiet courage, how she smiled through exhaustion, how she thanked everyone, even when her hands trembled from fatigue. When she wasn't by their side, she crocheted tiny hats and socks, one color for each baby. She called them her 5 pebbles, the little stones that survived the storm. The nickname spread across the clinic. Soon, other mothers whispered it too, finding comfort in the story of the woman who never gave up. Meanwhile, in New York, Richard Miller was on magazine covers with Vanessa, flashing his perfect smile. "Power Couple of the Year," one headline read. He didn't know that his children were fighting for their lives in a seaside clinic. He didn't know that his wife, the one he dismissed like a business expense, was building an unbreakable bond stronger than any fortune. One evening, as Anna held Ivy's tiny hand through the incubator hole, Michael approached quietly. "They're improving," he said. "If they keep gaining weight, we can move them to the next stage of care soon." Tears filled Anna's eyes. "Thank you, Michael. You've saved them." He shook his head. "You did. You kept fighting. Most women would have given up under what you've endured." She smiled faintly. "I already gave up once, the night I left New York, but these 5, they gave me a reason to live again." Outside, Mrs. Gray entered the ward, carrying a tray of soup and a small envelope. "The town raised some money for you," she said softly. "Enough to cover part of the hospital cost." Anna looked stunned. "I can't accept that." "You already did," Mrs. Gray interrupted with a wink. "You're one of us now." For the first time in months, Anna laughed, not out of joy, but relief. As she looked around the small room filled with light and warmth, she realized something. She had lost everything money could buy, but found everything it never could. The baby's monitors beeped in rhythm, 5 tiny heartbeats echoing through the stillness. Anna pressed her forehead against the glass, whispering, "We made it through the storm, my loves. We're still here." Outside the clinic, a car engine idled in the distance, and through the mist, a camera lens glimmered, aimed straight at the window where Anna sat. 3 months passed. The ocean outside the clinic was calm again, but inside the nursery, the real miracle was happening. One by one, the incubators opened. The babies were stronger now, their cheeks rounder, their cries louder. The nurses joked that Seabrook hadn't seen this much joy in years. Anna sat in a rocking chair by the window, 1 baby in each arm, 3 in bassinets beside her. She hummed softly, a tune she had written herself. It was the same lullaby she had sung through pain, through storms, through endless nights of fear. "You're my little pebbles," she whispered. "You survived the waves." When Michael entered the room, she smiled. "They're breathing on their own now." He nodded, genuinely proud. 5 miracles, and 1 very determined mother. Anna laughed softly, more like one exhausted one. Over the next few weeks, she worked to rebuild her life from nothing. Between feedings and diaper changes, she began crafting again. Using scraps of driftwood Mrs. Gray found on the beach, Anna built small picture frames and baby cribs, simple, rustic, filled with heart. One morning, Mrs. Gray peeked into the workshop corner. "You've got talent, dear. You should sell these." Anna smiled shyly. "Who would buy them?" "The world's full of new mothers," Mrs. Gray replied. "And every mother loves something made with love." And so 5 Pebbles Creations was born. Michael helped her set up an online shop using a new name, Anne Green Designs. Within weeks, local mothers began ordering. Each crib came with a carved symbol, 5 tiny circles representing hope after loss. People started to talk. "Who is Anne Green?" they asked. "Her pieces feel alive." Back in New York, a luxury magazine ran a feature on Richard Miller's empire. Buried in the article was a photo of his new fiancée, Vanessa, wearing a diamond ring the size of gilt. Yet, beneath the glamour, cracks had begun to form. Investors whispered, deals delayed, and one of Richard's largest partners had quietly withdrawn. The same week, Five Pebbles Creations received a mysterious bulk order from Manhattan. Anna didn't notice the address at first. It was just a shipping label. But as she wrapped the final piece, a handcrafted rocking chair, her eyes paused on the name, Miller Holdings, Nursery Department. Her hands froze. For a moment she couldn't breathe. Mrs. Gray looked over. Something wrong, love? Anna forced a smile. No, just a big order. But deep down her heart pounded. Was it a coincidence or fate's cruel joke? That night, as she stood by the window, rocking Ivy to sleep, the moonlight glimmered off the waves. She whispered, if he ever sees these, I hope he knows. I built this life without him. The sea answered with a soft breeze, carrying the scent of salt and freedom. But far across the water, in a Manhattan office, Richard Miller ran his hand along a new rocking chair and froze, recognizing the craftsmanship of a woman he thought was gone forever. The sun over Seabrook glittered on the gentle waves, the kind of morning that promised hope. Anna, now stronger and filled with quiet determination, balanced baby Grace on her hip while answering customer messages for Five Pebbles Creations. Orders were flowing in faster than she could build. Each sale meant diapers, formula, or another month of rent at Mrs. Gray's house. Her small living room had become a workshop. Sawdust clung to the air, wooden cribs lined the walls, polished with love. The rhythmic sound of sanding wood blended with baby giggles, a melody of rebirth. Mrs. Gray poked her head in. You've got a visitor, dear, says she's from the city. Anna's hands froze mid-sand. The city? Her heart stuttered. Who? The woman who stepped through the door wore pearls, heels, and a kind smile that somehow didn't feel fake. Anne Green? She asked softly. Yes, Anna replied, cautiously. I'm Elaine Hart. I run the Hart Foundation. We fund small women-owned businesses. I came across your work at a charity auction in Boston. One of your rocking chairs raised nearly $3,000. Anna's jaw dropped. 3,000, Elaine smiled. Your story, or at least the fragments I could find, moved people. You sell hope carved in wood, and I think the world needs more of that. Anna's eyes glistened. I'm just a mother trying to survive. That's exactly why you inspire me, Elaine said. She glanced around the small space. But you can't keep working like this. You need a proper workshop, a team, distribution. Anna shook her head. I can't afford that. Elaine reached into her purse and handed her a business card. You can't afford not to. I want to invest, not out of charity, but because I believe in you. I'll send over an initial grant to expand production under one condition. Anna hesitated. Which is? Never hide your story again, Elaine said softly. Women who survive deserve to be seen. That night, after Elaine left, Anna sat on the porch, watching the sunset turn the sea gold. Mrs. Gray joined her with 2 mugs of tea. You're scared, the old woman said knowingly. Anna nodded. If people find out who I am, if Richard... Mrs. Gray interrupted. If Richard was meant to be in your story, child, he wouldn't have written you out. Anna stared into the horizon. Then maybe it's time I start writing again. The next morning, she signed the paperwork. Five Pebbles Creations became Five Pebbles Studio. Within weeks, new equipment arrived. Local women from Seabrook, widows, single mothers, survivors, joined her team. Laughter and sawdust filled the workshop. As she held Ivy in her arms, Anna whispered, We're not hiding anymore. On her new website, she typed the tagline herself, built from broken pieces. For those still standing. Across the ocean of fate, Elaine Hart sent a press release that read, A mother of 5 turns pain into purpose. And in Manhattan, Vanessa Reed read it, her face draining of color as she realized the name Anne Green was far too familiar. Morning sunlight spilled through the curtains of the small Seabrook cottage. The scent of warm milk and sawdust filled the air. Anna, now known as Anne Green, rocked little Ethan while checking an order list stacked with names from across the country. Five Pebbles Studio had gone viral after Elaine Hart's article. The world loved her handmade cribs and the story of the mysterious single mother who turned heartbreak into beauty. Her children had become the soul of the workshop. Ivy, the quiet observer, giggled whenever Anna sang. Noah was bold and loud, already crawling faster than anyone could catch. Lily's laughter echoed like bells, while Grace clung to Anna's arm whenever she worked. Ethan, her smallest fighter, always slept with his tiny hand wrapped around her finger. Each night, she wrote in her journal, 5 lives, 5 reasons to fight. Mrs. Gray, now her full-time babysitter and honorary grandmother, would tease, "You're running a factory and a daycare at the same time." Anna would laugh softly, and somehow both are louder than the other. Dr. Michaels still visited every week, though lately his checkups had turned into shared dinners. He'd bring groceries, help fix a chair, or hold a baby while Anna worked. The line between friend and something deeper blurred, gently, without either of them naming it. One evening, he handed her an envelope. "From the clinic board," he said, "they're nominating you for the Seabrook Human Spirit Award." Anna blinked, stunned. "For what?" "For turning your pain into a purpose," he said simply. Her heart swelled. "I don't deserve that." "Yes," he replied, "you do." That weekend, the whole town helped her prepare for a small fair to showcase her furniture. Children painted seashells, women from her workshop arranged displays. The scent of fresh wood and sea breeze mingled as people gathered around her booth. "Anne Green," someone called. "Is it true you started this alone?" Anna smiled shyly. "Not alone," she said, looking at her children playing nearby. "Never alone." Applause erupted. Cameras flashed. For the first time since she left New York, she didn't hide her face. Back in Manhattan, however, a storm was forming. At the Miller Holdings headquarters, Vanessa slammed her tablet onto the desk. The article about 5 Pebbles Studio was trending, a photo of Anna, smiling, holding a child on each hip. The name Anne Green might fool most people, but not her. She turned to Richard, who was pouring himself a drink. "You need to see this," she hissed. He barely looked up. "Another business success story?" Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "No, it's her." "What are you talking about?" Vanessa shoved the tablet into his hands. "Look at the designs, the craftsmanship, the name, 5 Pebbles. You think that's a coincidence?" Richard's face drained of color. He stared at the photo, the woman he thought he'd lost forever, holding 5 beautiful children. His throat tightened. "My God, Anna." And in that single heartbeat, the man who once chose vanity over love realized he'd been living in the shadow of his greatest mistake. The glass walls of Miller Holdings glittered against the Manhattan skyline, but inside, tension cut sharper than any diamond. Vanessa Reed strutted into the boardroom in her tailored white suit, the color of purity she didn't possess. Reporters had been calling non-stop since morning, their questions circling one name: Anne Green. Richard sat at the head of the table, pale and distracted. The photo from the article still burned in his mind. Anna's eyes, her smile, the unmistakable craftsmanship of the woman he'd once loved. His pulse thudded in his ears. Vanessa slammed a folder onto the table. "Richard, focus. We have real problems. 3 investors pulled out today." He looked up slowly. "Since when do our investors read lifestyle magazines?" Vanessa forced a laugh. "It's not about the article. It's market shifts, bad press from the zoning lawsuit." He cut her off. "Stop lying. You're nervous because you know who she is." Her jaw tightened. "I don't know what you mean." Richard leaned forward. 5 Pebbles, 5 children, the same woodworking style she used to sketch in our home. "You think I don't recognize my wife's hands?" The word wife hit like a slap. Vanessa's polite mask cracked. "Ex-wife," she hissed. "And don't you forget it. She left you. She abandoned you." "She left because I destroyed her," Richard said quietly. "And you helped me do it." Vanessa's voice rose. "You're pathetic. You want her back because you finally realized money doesn't love you. But she's gone, Richard, and if you drag her into this, you'll lose everything." He stared at her, realization dawning. "You knew she was alive." Vanessa's silence was the only confirmation he needed. He stood abruptly. "Cancel my meetings. I'm leaving for Seabrook." "You're not going anywhere," she said, stepping in front of him. "That woman doesn't want you, Richard, and the second she sees your face, she'll destroy what's left of you." "Do you think the world will forgive a millionaire who abandoned his pregnant wife for his secretary?" Her words landed like bullets. Richard froze. She was right. If the story broke, his reputation, his company, everything would collapse. Vanessa smiled sweetly, lowering her voice. "So you'll stay, you'll play the devoted fiancé, and when I become Mrs. Miller, we'll bury her name once and for all." He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time saw the venom behind her charm. Meanwhile, in Seabrook, Anna sat at her kitchen table, feeding Lily mashed peaches. The radio buzzed softly in the background. the local anchor reading entertainment news. Rumors circulate around a Manhattan CEO and his fiancée as investors question recent scandals. Anna switched off the radio. She had no space left in her life for ghosts, but deep down, something in her heart stirred, a whisper she couldn't silence. And as Richard stared out his glass office window that night, gripping the photo of Anna and their children, Vanessa watched him quietly, dialing a number labeled Private Investigator. 2 days after the argument, Manhattan's morning fog settled over the skyline like guilt refusing to lift. Richard Miller hadn't slept. The photo of Anna, now Anne Green, lay on his desk beside a half-empty glass of scotch. He stared at it until the sunlight bled across her face. 5 children. His children. The reality hit harder with every breath. Vanessa appeared at his office door, flawless as ever. "You look awful," she said, pretending concern. "Leave," he muttered. "Richard." "I said leave." Her heels clicked sharply on the marble floor as she turned, fury simmering beneath her perfect smile. Once she was gone, Richard picked up his phone. "Get me Linda Park," he said. Linda, his old legal advisor, arrived an hour later, calm, efficient, wearing her trademark navy suit. "I was surprised to get your call," she said. "You fired me 3 years ago. I need someone I can trust." She sat across from him. "Then tell me the truth." He exhaled slowly. "Anna's alive." Linda didn't flinch. "And you just found this out?" He nodded. "She has 5 kids. Our kids." His voice cracked on the word. "She's in Seabrook, under a new name. I need to find her." Linda folded her hands. "Why? To apologize or to reclaim what you think you lost?" That question silenced him. She sighed. "Richard, if this becomes public, it'll ruin you. The board's already watching. Vanessa's influence runs deep. You need to tread carefully." "I don't care about the board," he said, rising to his feet. "I just want to make things right." Linda studied him for a moment, then nodded. "I'll see what I can do. But I warn you, if Vanessa senses anything, she'll strike first." Meanwhile, in Seabrook, Anna's life had become a dance of quiet miracles. The workshop buzzed with laughter from the women she'd hired. Babies gurgled in their playpen beside her work table. Every piece of furniture she built carried the warmth of her healing heart. Michael dropped by that afternoon, holding a small potted plant. "For your new office," he said with a shy grin. Anna laughed. "Office? You mean the corner of my kitchen?" He shrugged. "Every empire starts somewhere." She smiled. "I'm not building an empire, Michael. I'm just building a life." Outside, the wind carried the scent of salt and possibility. Anna didn't know that a storm was forming again, not from the sea this time, but from the city she'd escaped. Back in Manhattan, Vanessa sat at her vanity, phone pressed to her ear. "Follow him," she whispered to the private investigator. "If he leaves the city, I want to know where. If he talks to anyone named Linda Park, record it. I don't care what it costs." Then she hung up, her reflection smirking back at her. "Poor Richard," she murmured, "still doesn't know who's really running this game." And that night, while Richard searched for forgiveness, Vanessa began a hunt of her own. One that would drag Anna's peaceful new world back into the shadows she'd fought so hard to escape. The following week, clouds hung low over Manhattan, thick and gray like the deceit swirling inside Miller Holdings. Vanessa Reed sat in her office, tapping her manicured nails against a stack of documents. Her private investigator had delivered exactly what she needed, a trail leading straight to Seabrook, Anna's sanctuary. But Vanessa wasn't going to use that information to bring Richard closer to his wife. She was going to use it to destroy her. "Draft me a legal statement," she told her assistant coldly. "Claim Anna Miller signed an early divorce settlement before she left. Include a waiver for spousal and child support. Make it look official, notarized, dated 5 years back." Her assistant hesitated. "That's forgery." Vanessa's eyes turned to ice. "It's business." Across town, Richard sat in Linda Park's private law office. He looked tired, older. "I need proof she's safe," he said. "Then I'll go to her myself." Linda nodded. "I've sent word through private channels. But Richard, if you act rashly, Vanessa will sense weakness. She's not someone who forgives betrayal, not even from you." He smirked bitterly. "She's already betrayed me. I just haven't paid the full price yet." That same afternoon, Vanessa's fake documents hit the gossip circuits. A leaked divorce file claimed Anna had taken a secret settlement worth millions before vanishing. Online tabloids twisted the story, calling her the greedy wife who ran away pregnant. By evening, every headline screamed betrayal, not his but hers. Richard stormed into Vanessa's office, slamming the paper onto her desk. "What is this garbage?" She feigned surprise. It leaped. "I'm as shocked as you." He leaned forward, fury shaking his voice. "Her signature isn't even real." Vanessa's expression hardened. "You don't know that. And frankly, it's better for both of us if the world believes it." "You forged this," he said. She smiled sweetly. "Prove it." Richard's fist crashed against her desk. "I'll expose you." Vanessa laughed softly. "Oh, Richie, you'd expose yourself, too. You think the board will keep you after they learn you abandoned a pregnant wife for me? You think your investors will forgive that scandal?" Her words hit like knives. Not because they weren't true, but because they were. Richard staggered back. "You're a monster." Vanessa's smile turned razor-sharp. "I'm what you made me." Meanwhile, in Seabrook, Anna sat with Michael at the cafe near the pier, her phone buzzing non-stop with notifications. She hadn't read the headlines yet. She was too busy drawing designs for a new collection called the Rebirth line. Michael noticed her tired eyes. "You've been pushing too hard." "I just want to give the kids something to be proud of," she said. He smiled softly. "They already are." When she finally opened her phone that night, the first headline froze her blood. Her name, her face, the lies, her breathing quickened. "They found me," she whispered. Michael grabbed the phone, reading the article. His jaw tightened. "No, they haven't found you. They found your success. That's what scares them." Anna's voice cracked. "He's letting them destroy me again." Michael looked her in the eyes. "Then we'll fight back. This time, you're not alone." And while the sea outside crashed violently against the shore, a storm of deceit raged online, one that would soon force Anna to step out of hiding and face the ghosts she left behind. Anna didn't sleep that night. The soft hum of the ocean outside the cottage was drowned by the chaos in her mind. Her name, the name she thought she'd buried, was plastered across every gossip site in America. Pregnant wife took millions, vanished with secret children. Mogul's ex-wife resurfaces with fake identity. The lies spread like wildfire. She sat by the window, clutching her phone, tears streaking her face. Why? Why can't they just let me live? When the door creaked open, Mrs. Gray stepped in, wrapped in her floral robe. "Child," she said softly, "you're shaking." Anna handed her the phone. "They're calling me a thief. They say I ran away with money I never touched." Mrs. Gray read silently, her expression hardening. "Whoever's doing this wants to break you. Don't let them." "I don't know how to fight back," Anna whispered. "They're powerful. They have money, lawyers, media." Mrs. Gray interrupted. "And you've got truth. That's worth more than gold." The next morning, Michael arrived early. He'd seen the headlines too. "We can't let this go unanswered," he said. "If you stay silent, they'll write your story for you." Anna's hands trembled. "What can I even do?" He placed a folder on the table. "Start by protecting what's yours. I've been talking to Elaine Hart. She's furious about the smear campaign. She knows a lawyer who specializes in defamation. We can file for a restraining order and a cease and desist." Anna blinked, overwhelmed. "I can't afford." "You don't need to," Michael said firmly. "Elaine's covering it. She said, and I quote, 'Women like Anna built the world. Men like Richard just sell it.'" For the first time that week, Anna smiled through her tears. Later that day, Elaine joined them via video call. Her tone was brisk but warm. "The best defense is truth," she said. "We'll gather proof of your financials, your identity change, everything. You have nothing to hide, and that terrifies them." Anna nodded. "They forged papers, Elaine. They're saying I signed away my rights before I left." Elaine's expression darkened. "Then we'll prove forgery. Do you still have any of your old signatures?" "Yes, in my sketchbooks," Anna replied. "From before, everything." "Perfect," Elaine said. "We'll compare the ink, the format, the timestamp. Once that breaks in the media, their little empire of lies will collapse." As they spoke, something shifted in Anna's heart. The trembling fear that had ruled her for years began to burn into resolve. She wasn't just a mother or a victim anymore. She was a builder. Of truth, of strength, of her children's future. That evening, she stood before her workbench, tracing the carvings on her newest crib design. A mother bird shielding 5 chicks under her wings. "From now on," she whispered, "no one will decide who I am but me." Outside, The waves struck the shore in rhythm, like applause from the universe. But miles away in Manhattan, Vanessa Reed was already preparing her next move, one that would make Anna's quiet rebellion explode into a national scandal. The sun was rising over Seabrook when a soft knock came at the workshop door. Anna looked up from her carving table, expecting Mrs. Gray or Michael. Instead, a young woman stood there, thin, nervous, clutching a leather satchel. "Can I help you?" Anna asked cautiously. The woman hesitated. "You might not remember me. Julia Torres. I used to be your assistant at Miller Holdings." Time stopped. Julia. The same Julia who'd helped design Anna's first luxury furniture line, who had cried when Anna left the company. Anna's breath caught. "Julia?" Tears welled in the younger woman's eyes. "I thought you were dead." Anna took a step back, unsure whether to run or embrace her. "How did you find me?" "I didn't," Julia said quickly. "Elaine Hart did. She contacted me after the news broke, asked if I knew the truth. I told her everything. I came because you need to know what's happening in New York." Anna's pulse raced. "Tell me." Julia opened her satchel and pulled out a thick envelope. "Vanessa's behind the smear campaign. She forged documents with your old signature, claiming you took money and vanished. But there's more. She's covering up illegal property transfers under Richard's name. If the company goes down, she'll drag him and you with it." Anna sank into her chair, the room spinning. "Why would she risk that much?" "Because she wants power," Julia said. "Richard's been losing control. She's afraid you'll come back and ruin her. She wants you discredited before that can happen." Mrs. Gray appeared in the doorway, holding a tray of coffee. "Then we can't let her win," she said firmly. Julia nodded. "Elaine's building a legal case. She asked me to hand-deliver this. It's the evidence." She placed the envelope on the table. Inside were contracts, financial transfers, and an audio file labeled Read Confidential.mp3. Michael arrived moments later, drawn by the tension in the air. Anna handed him the folder silently. He scrolled through the documents, his face hardening. "This is enough to open an investigation. Vanessa's done." Anna exhaled, her hands trembling. "Then why am I still scared?" "Because this time," Michael said gently, "you're not just fighting for survival, you're fighting for justice." Julia smiled weakly. "I wanted to say I'm sorry, Anna. Back then, I didn't protect you. I let them treat you like you were disposable." Anna reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You're here now. That's what matters." Outside, the waves crashed louder, as if echoing her determination. Julia stood, ready to leave. "I'll testify when the time comes. Elaine's team is ready to move, but they'll need you to go public. Tell your story on your terms." Anna's breath caught. "Go public?" Michael met her eyes. "It's the only way to end this." She looked toward the window, where the sunlight spilled across the sea. The same sea that had once hidden her. "Then I'll stop hiding," she said quietly. "Let them see who Anne Green really is." And as Julia's car disappeared down the coast, a news alert blinked on Michael's phone. Vanessa Reed had just announced her engagement to Richard Miller, turning Anna's private war into a spectacle for the entire world to see. By the time the morning news aired, the headlines were everywhere. Richard Miller engaged to Vanessa Reed. Glittering photos of their engagement party splashed across every major outlet. Champagne, diamonds, fake smiles. Beneath the glossy surface, though, the story had a darker edge. Rumors continue around Richard's mysterious ex-wife, who vanished years ago after taking a secret settlement. In Seabrook, Anna held the newspaper and shaking hands. Her 5 children played nearby, blissfully unaware that their mother's past was once again being sold as entertainment. Mrs. Gray took the paper gently from her. "They can twist the story, child, but they can't twist who you are." Anna stared out the window at the ocean, her heart pounding. "If I stay silent, she wins again." Michael entered then, his phone buzzing in his hand. "Elaine just called. She secured a segment on the Morning View. They want you to tell your side of the story, live." Anna froze. "Live? On television?" He nodded. "If you go public, Vanessa can't bury you with forged papers. The truth has to come from you." Fear surged through her. "I haven't spoken his name in years, Michael. What if I fall apart?" He smiled gently. "Then fall apart on camera. Let them see the woman behind the lies." That evening, she sat at her desk, surrounded by sketches of cribs and rocking chairs. Each one felt like a piece of her soul carved in wood. Her children slept soundly, unaware that tomorrow their mother would step into a world that had once destroyed her. She whispered to herself, "No more hiding." The next morning, a car from the network arrived to take her to the studio. Elaine met her at the entrance, elegant and calm. "Remember, Anna? Not Anne. This is your truth. Don't let them turn you into their version of it." The lights were blinding. Cameras rolled. The host smiled politely, her voice syrup-sweet. "Today we welcome Anne Green, or should I say Anna Miller, the woman behind the viral story 5 Pebbles Studio. Tell us, is it true you vanished after taking millions from your husband?" Anna took a breath so deep it steadied her soul. "No," she said firmly. "I left with nothing, not a dollar. I walked out of a mansion pregnant and alone because the man I loved chose his assistant over our family. I rebuilt myself, for my children." The studio fell silent. The host blinked, thrown off script. Anna continued, voice trembling but strong. "Those lies they printed? They're paper chains. They can bind you only if you let them. I won't anymore." Back in Manhattan, Richard sat in his office watching the live feed. His hands shook as Anna's face filled the screen. Vanessa stood behind him, seething. "She's destroying everything," Vanessa hissed. Richard whispered, "No, she's saving herself." The broadcast ended. The internet exploded. Hashtags flooded social media, "Justice for Anna, 5 Pebbles Truth." And as the world finally began to listen, Vanessa Reed's carefully built kingdom of deceit started to crumble, one headline at a time. The world woke up divided, half shocked, half inspired. Overnight, Anna's interview had exploded across every media outlet. Millions replayed her trembling but fearless words, the raw honesty of a woman who had survived betrayal and rebuilt her life. 5 Pebbles Truth trended worldwide. In Seabrook, the phone in Anna's small office wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, talk shows, advocacy groups, everyone wanted more. But while some called her brave, others called her a liar. The same networks that once ignored her now dissected every second of her broadcast. Mrs. Gray watched from the kitchen doorway, holding little Grace. "They can talk all they want," she said, "but they can't unsee the truth you showed them." Anna nodded, though her stomach churned. "I just hope it's enough." At that same moment in Manhattan, the Miller Holdings building buzzed with chaos. Investors were panicking. Board members demanded statements. The company's value had plummeted overnight. In the executive suite, Vanessa Reed stood before a swarm of cameras, her face painted with rehearsed grief. "I'm devastated," she said smoothly. "Richard and I only wish peace for his former wife. We were unaware of her struggles." Her crocodile tears shimmered under studio lights, but even as she spoke, the walls were closing in. In a corner office, Richard watched from behind the glass, jaw clenched. He had spent the entire night reading every article, every comment. For the first time in years, he saw the woman he'd left behind not as a victim, but as the strongest person he'd ever known. Linda Park entered quietly, tossing a file onto his desk. "We have a bigger problem," she said. "One of the forged documents Vanessa filed includes your digital signature. If the investigation proves fraud, it's not just her that's going down, it's you too." Richard's face went pale. "She forged mine?" Linda nodded grimly. "Or copied it. Either way, it links you, but if you cooperate with investigators, you can clear your name and help Anna." He stared out the window at the city that once worshipped him. "Then let it all burn," he said finally. "I'm done hiding behind lies." Back in Seabrook, Anna sat on the porch with Michael, watching the ocean shimmer in the afternoon sun. He handed her a cup of tea. "The world believes you now," he said softly. "Believing isn't the same as forgiving," Anna replied. "He hasn't apologized." Michael smiled faintly. "Maybe some people need to lose everything before they remember what matters." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. A notification blinked across the screen. "Breaking news. Miller Holdings under federal investigation for fraudulent contracts." Anna's eyes widened. "It's starting," she whispered. Michael nodded. "The truth always starts as a whisper before it roars." In Manhattan, cameras swarmed outside Miller Holdings. Reporters shouted questions. Richard stepped forward, flanked by Linda, his voice steady. "Yes, mistakes were made. Yes, lies were told. But the person who told the truth deserves her peace. Her name is Anna Miller, and she's braver than all of us." As flashbulbs exploded, Vanessa Reed watched from her limo, her perfect smile cracking. For the first time, the woman who built her empire on deceit realized The world was finally turning against her. The storm that Anna's truth unleashed tore through Manhattan faster than any hurricane. Within 48 hours, every major network was dissecting the fall of Miller Holdings. The once golden empire was now a crumbling monument to greed, deceit, and betrayal. Richard Miller, who had once been the face of success, sat under the blinding lights of a press conference. Cameras flashed like gunfire. His tailored suit couldn't hide the fatigue in his eyes. Linda Park stood beside him, reading the official statement. "Miller Holdings will cooperate fully with the federal investigation," she said firmly. "All contracts and transactions authorized under Vanessa Reed will be reviewed. Mr. Miller has stepped down as CEO, effective immediately." Gasps filled the room. Reporters shouted questions. "Did you know about the forged documents? Was the settlement real? Where is Vanessa Reed now?" Richard leaned toward the microphone. His voice trembled, but every word carried the weight of years of guilt. "I allowed my arrogance to blind me. I believed people who wanted my power, not my heart, and in doing so I destroyed the only person who ever truly loved me." Back in Seabrook, the live broadcast played on a small TV in the workshop. Anna stood frozen, holding a half-finished mobile of wooden stars. Her 5 children giggled nearby, too young to understand the history unfolding on screen. Mrs. Gray turned down the volume. "He's trying, dear," she said softly. Anna's throat tightened. "It's too late to fix what's broken." Michael entered, wiping sawdust from his hands. "Maybe it's not about fixing," he said gently. "Maybe it's about owning what you've done and letting time decide the rest." Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Vanessa Reed was nowhere to be found. The investigators had arrived at her luxury penthouse only to find it stripped bare. The closets empty, the jewelry boxes gone. But Linda's team had anticipated it. The forged documents, the offshore accounts, all traced back to her. That evening, an anonymous video leaked online. A recording of Vanessa yelling at a staff member, her voice dripping with venom. "Do you think I care who gets hurt? As long as I get what I want, it's worth it." The internet turned brutal. Sponsors dropped her within hours. Her social media vanished overnight. The woman who had once walked on diamonds was now hiding in shadows. Richard watched the chaos unfold, a strange mix of justice and regret burning in his chest. For the first time, he didn't want to save his company. He wanted to make things right for Anna. He called Linda. "Set up a trust fund," he said. "For the children, quietly, no PR." Linda hesitated. "You'll be broke after this." He nodded. "Then maybe I'll finally understand what real wealth feels like." In Seabrook, Anna placed the mobile above her baby's crib, tiny stars dancing in the gentle breeze. "We survived," she whispered, brushing a tear from her cheek. Michael rested a hand on her shoulder. "The truth set you free, Anna. Now let it free him too." She closed her eyes, not yet ready to forgive, but no longer wishing for revenge. And across the ocean of consequence, Vanessa Reed crossed an airport terminal with a forged passport in hand, unaware that the next person to call her name would be an FBI agent. Rain slicked the Manhattan courthouse steps as a swarm of reporters jostled for position. Cameras flashed, microphones stretched forward, and a familiar name echoed through the chaos. Vanessa Reed. The woman who once wore diamonds now hid behind dark glasses and a trench coat. Her lips, once painted in confidence, trembled. The FBI escort flanked her tightly, leading her inside to face charges of fraud, embezzlement, and falsifying legal documents. Her empire of deceit had finally crumbled. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Richard Miller sat behind his attorney, his hands folded, jaw tight. Across the aisle, Vanessa refused to look at him. Linda Park stood at the prosecution's table, representing both the company and the victims of Vanessa's schemes, including Anna. The judge entered. "This court is now in session." As the proceedings began, the evidence rolled out like thunder. Emails, signatures, offshore transfers. The audio recording Julia had found played through the courtroom speakers. Vanessa's voice, sharp and venomous. "Do you think I care who gets hurt? As long as I get what I want, it's worth it." Gasps filled the room. Richard's stomach twisted as he stared at the woman beside whom he had destroyed his marriage. For years he had defended her, believed her, even loved her. Now, all he felt was disgust. Vanessa's lawyer tried to spin the narrative, claiming mental stress, manipulation, even Richard's negligence. But it was useless. The evidence was undeniable. Then Linda called her final witness, Mrs. Anna Miller. The courtroom went silent. Anna entered, calm and poised. Her long brown hair framed a face that was no longer fragile. It was resolute. She wore a modest navy dress and held her head high as she took the stand. Richard's breath caught. Mrs. Miller, Linda began, can you tell the court what you lost because of the defendant's actions? Anna's voice was steady. I lost my name, my safety, the chance to hold my children in peace. But what she really stole was the truth, and I'm here to take it back. Vanessa glared daggers at her. You think this makes you noble? Anna turned to her, eyes sharp as glass. No, it just makes me free. The judge banged the gavel for silence. When it was over, the verdict hit like the final crash of a storm. Guilty on all counts. Vanessa Reed was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison without parole. The courtroom erupted. Richard stood slowly, tears burning his eyes. As Vanessa was led away in handcuffs, she turned to him one last time. You'll die alone, Richard. He didn't respond. He only whispered, maybe, but not in shame anymore. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions at Anna, but she simply smiled and said, the truth doesn't need noise, just courage. That night, as the headlines declared Vanessa Reed sentenced, Miller Empire collapses, Anna sat by the fire in Seabrook, her children asleep upstairs. Michael arrived quietly, holding a newspaper. It's over, he said. Anna looked into the flames. No, she whispered, it's finally beginning. And as the rain outside faded into the calm of dawn, the world that once broke her began to rebuild itself, this time in her name. The courthouse victory echoed across headlines for weeks, but in Seabrook, life returned to its quiet rhythm. The air smelled of salt and wood shavings. The waves rolled in steady, like a heartbeat, constant, grounding. Yet even peace had a shadow. One chilly morning as Anna sanded a new crib design, Mrs. Gray entered holding a white envelope. This came for you, she said, her tone unreadable. Anna wiped her hands and frowned. For me? Who's it from? Mrs. Gray hesitated. No return address, but it came from Manhattan. The handwriting on the front stopped Anna's breath, neat, familiar, unmistakably Richard's. Her palms went cold. Michael, who was adjusting a shelf nearby, looked up. Do you want me to read it first? Anna shook her head. No, I need to face it. She sat down, her fingers trembling as she tore open the seal. The scent of expensive paper hit her, mixed with faint cologne, the same one he'd worn the night he chose Vanessa. Anna, the letter began. If this reaches you, it means you've already found peace, something I never had the courage to give you. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I finally understand what love was supposed to mean. You built something real while I chased ghosts of power. You gave life, and I took it for granted. I'll spend whatever years I have left trying to make that right. Tears blurred the ink. She paused to breathe, her chest tight. The letter continued. The trust fund is now active in your name. It belongs to the children. Not as payment, as responsibility. I've stepped away from everything. The mansion, the company, all gone. I live small now, but for the first time I'm not pretending. I don't expect you to reply. I just wanted to say thank you for surviving what I destroyed. Signed, Richard. For a long time the room was silent except for the sound of the sea outside. Mrs. Gray placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Child, sometimes ghosts don't come to haunt. They come to say goodbye. Anna folded the letter carefully and placed it in a wooden box beside her sketches. He can't undo what he did, she whispered, but maybe he finally learned. That evening she took the children for a walk along the pier. Ivy ran ahead, chasing seagulls. Noah tried to count the boats. Lily and Grace held hands while Ethan clung to her leg. Michael walked beside her, the breeze ruffling his hair. You okay? He asked softly. Anna smiled faintly. I think, for the first time, yes. He nodded. You don't owe him forgiveness. I know, she said, but I can let go. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Anna lifted her face to the wind. The salt air stung her eyes, or maybe it was the tears she hadn't allowed herself to cry. And miles away in a small apartment, Richard Miller sealed another envelope, addressed only to my children. He placed it in a drawer, never mailed, by whispering a promise to the family he had lost, but finally learned to love from afar. Months passed since the trial, and the world slowly forgot the scandal that had once dominated every headline. But in Seabrook, Anna's life blossomed, brighter than ever. The Five Pebbles studio had grown into a full company. a workshop alive with women sanding, carving, painting, and laughing. Each piece of furniture bore her symbol. 5 tiny circles carved into the wood, one for each child. Orders from Boston and Seattle came in today, Mrs. Gray announced proudly as she entered the studio with her clipboard. Looks like you'll need a bigger crew, sweetheart. Anna smiled. That's a good problem to have. Michael appeared at the door, holding blueprints. And maybe a new building, he said. I talked to the city council. They're offering a grant for local small businesses that hire single mothers. You'd qualify easily. Anna looked around, heart swelling. We did this, didn't we? You did this, Michael corrected, smiling softly. Still, peace always carried an echo of what came before. Some nights, when the sea wind blew too hard, Anna would think of Richard, the man she had loved, lost, and outgrown. Meanwhile, in New York, Richard Miller stood once more in a courtroom, not as a defendant this time, but as a witness. The second phase of Vanessa Reed's sentencing was underway. She had appealed for leniency, claiming emotional manipulation and remorse. Her lawyers painted her as a victim of corporate corruption. When Richard took the stand, the courtroom hushed. His voice was low but clear. Vanessa Reed was never a victim. She manipulated, deceived, and destroyed. I allowed her to because I was a coward. But the true victims were the people who trusted me and the woman I betrayed. Vanessa glared at him from the defense table, venom flashing in her eyes. You think you're a saint now? She spat. He met her gaze calmly. No, just a man who finally stopped lying. The judge's gavel came down hard. The appeal was denied. Vanessa Reed was sentenced to serve her full 15 years, with no chance of parole. The sound of the gavel echoed like thunder. The final closing of a chapter, written in betrayal. Outside, Richard refused to speak to the press. Instead, he handed Linda Park a sealed folder. This is my last act as a businessman, he said. Inside were documents transferring his remaining assets into charitable trusts, one for 5 Pebbles, one for neonatal care centers. Linda frowned. Richard, this leaves you with almost nothing. He nodded. Then maybe that's how I start over. Back in Seabrook, the same afternoon, Anna received a certified letter. She opened it cautiously. Inside was a single-page document confirming a new fund titled the 5 Pebbles Trust. The donor's name was anonymous, but she didn't need to read the signature to know. She closed her eyes, tears spilling freely this time. That evening, she stood at the edge of the water, the sunset burning gold across the waves. Her children played in the surf, laughter echoing through the wind. And far away in Manhattan, Richard Miller packed a small suitcase, locked his empty apartment, and walked toward a train station, a man finally free, leaving behind everything but the lessons he had paid for in full. Spring arrived early in Seabrook. The air smelled of salt and jasmine, the kind of scent that promised renewal. Anna stood on the porch of her workshop, watching sunlight bounce off the freshly painted sign, 5 Pebbles Studio and Foundation. She had officially registered it as both a business and a charity, providing jobs for struggling mothers, funding NICU programs, and mentoring women rebuilding their lives. Mrs. Gray joined her with 2 mugs of coffee. You did it, Anna, she said, pride glinting in her tired eyes. You turned pain into purpose. Anna smiled softly. I didn't do it alone. She glanced inside, where the hum of machines and women's laughter filled the air. They helped me remember who I am. But the day carried something heavier, too. On her desk lay an unopened envelope from Linda Park. Michael had brought it earlier that morning, his face unreadable. It's the final legal document, he'd said quietly. Now alone, Anna picked it up. The seal bore the state emblem, official, final. Inside were 2 papers, one declaring the dissolution of her marriage to Richard Miller, the other confirming sole custody of her 5 children. Her eyes traced the black ink slowly, her heart both heavy and light. There it was. Freedom, printed and signed. She sat down, breathing deeply. The memories returned in flashes. The storm, the betrayal, the nights in the NICU. But this time, they didn't drown her. They passed like waves. Rough, but harmless. When Michael appeared at the doorway, she smiled. It's done, he nodded. How does it feel? Like the end of a very long sentence, she whispered. He stepped closer. Then it's time for a new chapter. She handed him the papers. Keep them for me. I don't want these to be the first thing my kids remember when they ask about their parents. He hesitated. Do you think they'll ever meet him? Anna looked out toward the ocean where her children played in the sand. Maybe one day, when they're old enough to understand that people make mistakes, even the ones who once loved them. Across the country, in a small coastal town near Maine, Richard Miller signed his own copy of the papers. He lived modestly now, teaching business ethics at a community college, volunteering at a children's hospital. No reporters, no empire, no marble floors, just quiet repentance. When he sealed the envelope, his hands didn't shake this time. The past was still there, but it no longer ruled him. Back in Seabrook, the sun dipped low, turning the sky shades of rose and gold. The children ran up from the beach, their laughter breaking the quiet. "Mommy, come play!" Anna kicked off her shoes, running barefoot into the surf. For the first time, she wasn't running from something. She was running toward something. As the waves splashed against her ankles, Michael watched from the porch, a smile tugging at his lips. And when the tide finally settled, Anna Miller, once a woman broken by betrayal, stood tall in the golden light, papers fluttering in the wind, free at last from every chain that ever tried to hold her. Summer swept through Seabrook with golden light and laughter. The Five Pebbles studio thrived like never before. The workshop was now twice its original size, alive with music, sawdust, and women whose stories mirrored Anna's own. Survivors, mothers, dreamers. Every table, chair, and cradle that left the studio carried her emblem. 5 small circles of hope. Anna walked through the rows of busy hands, smiling. "Take your time," she told one worker sanding a cradle. "Every piece we send out holds a story. It should feel alive." From the doorway, Michael watched her, admiration soft in his eyes. Over the years, he had seen her transform from a woman hiding behind shadows into a leader whose strength lit every corner she touched. When the workday ended, the two of them sat outside the studio. The sky burned pink over the ocean, and the children's laughter echoed from the nearby beach. "You've built something incredible," Michael said. "We've built it," Anna corrected, smiling. "You were there when I could barely stand," he chuckled. "I just brought the medical charts. You did the rest." The conversation lingered in the air, tender and unspoken. For months, their friendship had carried an invisible thread of something deeper. A connection built on respect, patience, and quiet admiration. But both were careful. Neither wanted to break the fragile peace that life had finally offered. Later that week, Anna received a letter from the Hart Foundation. Elaine Hart had retired and wanted Anna to take her place as regional director, overseeing grants for women-owned businesses across the coast. Anna stared at the offer, stunned. "Me?" Mrs. Gray laughed. "Who else? You've already been doing the job for free." That night, Anna stood by the water, letter in hand. The waves lapped against her toes. For the first time, the future stretched wide and clear. No fear, no scandal, no ghosts, just possibility. Michael joined her quietly, hands in his pockets. "You're thinking about taking it?" "I am," she said softly, "but I'm scared. Every new beginning feels like stepping into the unknown again." He nodded. "That's what courage is, walking into the unknown anyway." She turned to him, eyes glimmering. "You've always known what to say." He smiled. "That's only because you've taught me what strength really looks like." They stood in silence, the sea murmuring beneath the sunset. When one of the children's laughter carried on the wind, Anna reached for Michael's hand, almost without thinking. He didn't pull away. Instead, he intertwined his fingers with hers, steady and certain. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. For the first time in years, Anna felt something she thought she'd buried forever. The simple, quiet joy of being seen, not as a victim, but as a woman who had rebuilt herself from ashes. And as the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, Anna realized love had found her again. Not in the grand gestures of wealth and promise, but in the gentle steadiness of a man who had stood beside her through every storm. The smell of roasted chicken and baked bread filled the house that evening. Mrs. Gray's dining room, once quiet and lonely, now buzzed with laughter. The table was long and crowded. Anna's 5 children, Michael and, for the first time in years, her parents and younger sister Chloe. It had taken courage to invite them. When Anna fled New York, her parents had believed the lies the media spread. They'd thought she'd chosen silence out of guilt, not survival. But now, with the truth out in the open, the years of distance hung heavy in the air like ghosts waiting to be named. Her father, Peter, cleared his throat, breaking the silence. The last time we saw you, it was at the hospital. You wouldn't even look at us." Anna's fork paused midair. "I was ashamed," she admitted quietly. "Not because of what I did, but because of what I allowed to happen. I let someone break me so completely that I forgot who I was." Her mother, Susan, reached across the table, her eyes glistening. "We should have come for you," she whispered. "You were our daughter, and we believed the wrong story." Tears spilled down Anna's cheeks before she could stop them. "You believed what I wanted you to. I didn't want you to see how bad it was." Chloe squeezed her hand. "You were protecting us even when you were falling apart." The children watched quietly, sensing something sacred unfolding. Michael, ever gentle, poured water into glasses and said softly, "Families break, but sometimes they break so they can be put back together stronger." Peter nodded, eyes misty. "Your mother and I saw the interview. The world may know your story now, but only we know the little girl who always believed in happy endings." Anna smiled through her tears. "Maybe I still do." Noah, the boldest of her children, piped up. "Grandpa, do you know how to make rocking chairs? Mommy can teach you." Laughter rippled around the table. The tension dissolved into warmth. Susan stood, lifting her glass. "To Anna, for surviving, for forgiving, and for giving us 5 beautiful reasons to start over." Glasses clinked, hearts mended. Later, when the house grew quiet, Anna stepped out onto the porch with her father. The moon glowed over the waves, soft and full. Peter said, "You know, I always pictured you living in a big house with servants and marble floors. But this—" He gestured toward the sea, the children's laughter echoing faintly inside. "This feels like home." Anna smiled. "It is." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Your mother and I are proud of you, sweetheart. Not for what you built, but for who you became." Anna leaned her head against him. "That means more than you'll ever know." As she stood there, feeling the warmth of family wrap around her again, she realized that forgiveness wasn't just about letting go of the past. It was about allowing love to return in its truest form. And as the ocean whispered below them, Anna Miller, once a woman running from her family, finally found herself surrounded by it, stronger, fuller, and finally whole again. It was a quiet Sunday morning in Seabrook. The sky was painted silver, the waves whispering against the shore. Inside the cottage, Anna was helping Grace and Lily braid ribbons into their hair for church. Ivy chased Noah and Ethan through the hall, laughter echoing like music. Life, at last, was peaceful. Until someone knocked on the door. It was a firm, steady knock, not like the neighbors or deliverymen. Michael, who had stopped by to take them to town, froze mid-step. Anna looked up, heart suddenly tight. Mrs. Gray peered through the window, her face paling. "It's him," she whispered. Richard Miller stood outside. Time seemed to stop. The man who had once walked out of her life now stood on her porch, older, humbler, holding his hat in both hands. His hair was flecked with gray, his eyes shadowed by regret. He didn't wear the arrogance of wealth anymore, only the quiet weight of remorse. Anna opened the door slowly. The smell of sea salt filled the air between them. "You shouldn't have come," she said softly. "I know," Richard replied, "but I needed to." The children peeked from behind her legs, curious. His breath hitched when he saw them. 5 small faces, each carrying traces of him. He knelt down instinctively, tears pooling in his eyes. "They're beautiful." Anna's voice was steady but cold. "You don't get to say that. I don't expect forgiveness," he said quickly. "I just wanted to see them, once, to know they're real." Michael stepped forward, protective but calm. "You've seen them, now go." Richard nodded slowly, accepting the boundary. "I understand. I'm not here to take anything away. I just wanted to return something that was always yours." He reached into his coat and handed Anna a small wooden box. Inside lay a necklace, a simple gold chain with a tiny charm shaped like a tree. It was the one she'd lost years ago during their last argument, the night she packed her bags. "I kept it," Richard said. "I told myself it was all I had left of the woman I ruined. Now I realize it was never mine to keep." Anna looked down at the necklace, memories rushing in like waves. Her voice trembled. "You should have come sooner." "I wasn't ready to face what I'd done," he admitted. "Now I am." Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "You can't fix the past, Richard," he nodded. "I know, but maybe I can honor it by never letting another woman feel what you did." For a moment, the world went still. Then Anna handed him the necklace back. No, she said softly. Keep it, as a reminder of what truth costs when it's ignored. He looked at her one last time, eyes full of both love and grief. You were always the better one, Anna. As he turned and walked away, the children ran out to the porch. Mommy, who was that man? Ivy asked. Anna smiled faintly, the sea wind in her hair. Someone who finally learned what love really means. And as Richard disappeared down the foggy road, Anna knew the past had finally closed its door, leaving her free to open a new one. The morning after Richard's visit dawned calm and bright, the ocean glittering like a field of diamonds. Seabrook was waking slowly, the gulls circling above the docks, fishermen shouting greetings, and sunlight spilling through the open windows of Anna's cottage. Inside, the scent of pancakes filled the air. The children sat around the table, chattering excitedly. Lily tried to feed a spoonful of syrup to Ethan, while Noah proudly announced he had counted all the boats in the ocean, at least 20. Anna laughed, the sound light and full. For the first time in years, she felt no shadow clinging to her heart. The storm that had followed her for so long was gone. Michael entered carrying a bouquet of wildflowers. These are from the little garden behind the studio, he said. I thought you might want to start your morning with something beautiful. Anna accepted them, smiling. Every morning feels beautiful now. He sat beside her, his eyes gentle. You did it, Anna. You built everything they said you couldn't. She looked around the sunlit kitchen, her children, her home, the scent of sawdust still clinging faintly to her hands. I didn't build it alone, she said softly. You and Mrs. Gray, Elaine, everyone in this town, you reminded me I wasn't broken, just unfinished. Michael's voice was low. So what's next for you? Anna gazed out the window at the sea. I'm opening a second workshop in Portland. We'll train single mothers, survivors, and young girls who think they don't have a future. Because they do. They always do. He smiled. That sounds like the beginning of something big. She turned to him. It's the beginning of something right. Later that afternoon, the entire town gathered for the opening of the Five Pebbles Foundation. Mrs. Gray cut the ribbon herself, tears in her eyes. This woman, she said proudly, turned tragedy into a lighthouse for others. That's what miracles look like. The crowd cheered. Cameras flashing. Anna stood beside Michael and her children, her heart full. She glanced up at the sky, the same one she'd once looked at while crying in the back of a taxi, carrying 5 lives inside her and no hope left. Now, that same sky looked different. Vast, forgiving, infinite. As the sun dipped low, painting everything gold, Anna addressed the crowd. When I left New York, I thought my story was over. But I learned something. Sometimes, endings are just quiet beginnings in disguise. You don't have to be rich to be powerful, and you don't have to be perfect to deserve peace. The audience fell silent, hanging on every word. I was once a wife, a victim, and a ghost, she continued. Now I am a mother, a builder, and a woman reborn. To every person who has been broken, don't wait for someone to save you. Be your own miracle. The applause thundered across the square. That night, when the lights dimmed and her children fell asleep, Anna stepped outside. Michael joined her, the stars reflected in his eyes. You did it, he whispered. She smiled. No, she said softly. We did. And as the sea breathed quietly beneath the moonlight, Anna Miller, once a woman who walked into the rain with nothing, finally stood in the light of everything she had become. Because some stories don't end in heartbreak, they end in healing. So that's how the story ends. My dear friends, you're still here, aren't you? If you've stayed until now, it means something in Anna's journey touched your heart. Maybe because, in some way, we've all been her. Life breaks us, betrays us, humbles us. But as the Stoics remind us, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Pain doesn't have to define us, it can refine us. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What stands in the way becomes the way." And that's exactly what Anna did. She turned every obstacle into her path toward. So my friends, if you've ever walked through your own storm, remember, healing starts when you choose to rebuild, not when someone rescues you. If this story moved you even a little, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope tonight, and don't forget to subscribe. Because here, we tell stories that remind you. Broken doesn't mean defeated. It means reborn.